I really wasn't sure if the parents really believe in sending their daughters for education. I just didn't know, but I wanted to find out, what they really thought. So I made the effort to go with teachers that were from the school to as many homes as I could that these girls belonged to in the surrounding villages, and asked the same questions about why do you want to send your daughter, for education? What do you believe about this? And most of them said, we're not educated. And their grandparents were not educated either, but we want our daughters to have those opportunities that we didn't have. And there was one instance where I was in a village, they had a meeting, and because I visit there, they asked me to say something and they would translate it into English. And I can't remember the exact sentence, but I talked about the importance of girls' education, and immediately, spontaneously, as it was translated, the whole audience was clapping. So in my heart, I believe they really believe in what they're doing and supporting their daughters for. This has a lot of meaning. It's not just, on the surface level or anything like that. So every single one was like, we want our daughters to have opportunities, education, employment, whatever they want to do, we're going to support them 100%. So that was beautiful to see that they believed in that so strongly.
Christine Davy is the founder and chairperson of EDGE Nonprofit, an organization based right here in the high country that is having a global impact. EDGE stands for Education for Girls Empowerment, and its mission is to support the education of girls in a rural village in Odisha, India, as many of these girls are part of the first generation in their families who are receiving a formal education. In this conversation, Christine also talks about how her parents inspired her to get involved and to start this organization, and how folks right here in Boone and beyond can support the education of these girls. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy the conversation. I hope you like and subscribe to the channel. And most importantly, I hope you head over to educationforgirlsempowerment.org to support their mission over there. Thank you. So EDGE Nonprofit, I guess if you could just kind of start things out, I'd like to hear a little bit of an overview of the organization. Maybe mainly what y'all do and just kind of what the mission is that y'all are trying to accomplish for these girls all the way on the other side of the world.
Sure, yeah. EDGE Nonprofit, so Education for Girls Empowerment. Mm-hmm. That is, what we stand for. One of our mottos is changing the world one girl at a time. And I think that's something each of us embody and truly believe that. Mm-hmm. These girls are from villages in India, and we want them to have opportunities to do things in their life that they never thought they could do. So our mission is to create a safe, sustainable environment for these girls that live in the western part of the state of Odisha in India, mm-hmm. which is in the eastern part of the country as well. And they are generally from rural communities, intentionally to give them the opportunities to follow their dreams and create things they want to do in their lives. And we want them to live their own productive lives and have those opportunities as well. So EDGE is here to support their dreams. Really, that's what it comes down to. What do they want to be in the world? What's important for them? How do they see that they want to contribute to in their communities? Many of them want to become teachers and educate others because that's what they have, received as well. So we really try to build partnerships with them. I have gone there most every year except during the COVID time to really listen to them, trust them about what they say they need, not what we think they need. So over the years we've done, in the beginning we did like uniforms and water bottles, things that we observed like was a need to just serve the girls. Actually, it came from one of the girls. They told me that they have one uniform and they wear it 6 days a week. And I said, well, what does that mean? We go home, wash it, put it out to dry every day so we can wear it the next day. And I was like, oh, wow, we can support that. Let's support something that has some meaning in their life for them. So in the beginning, we supplied uniforms and water bottles, backpacks, things like that, because it was a daily school. They would ride their bikes back and forth to go to the school at that time.
Yeah. So I guess that was something that y'all saw, that was something that I guess when you're there, you go there about, what, is it 6 months out of the year, or you'd at least visit?
Yeah,
at least once a
right.
year.
In the beginning, I went for 2 or 3 months because they really didn't know me and I didn't really know them. And I thought, to establish connection, rapport, trust, I need to spend enough time then to create relationships with them.
And going there, having those conversations, and you're probably like, hey, like, this is something that there's all kinds of people in the U.S. or back home that would be happy to support this effort. So it sounds like you really started out with uniforms, water bottles,
Yes.
I guess some of the essentials that y'all could really begin to get this effort off the ground running. And it sounds like as y'all have done this over the years, how old is the organization?
So we were founded in 2017, so it's been a few years now, going on 8 years or so. And one of the premises of founding this organization, I am really interested in female education, female empowerment. My mom was denied her education. She was growing up in Trinidad and Tobago, and she wasn't wanted when she was born. Her own father left because she was a female child immediately after she was born. And then her stepfather, her mom remarried, and stepfather said, you're not going to go to school. You're going to stay at home and do all the household duties.
Yeah.
And I always think, how would her life have been different if she had an education? What other things could she have done in her life? So that's my inner motivation for why I'm such a believer in female empowerment and education.
So this is very personal for you. So around what time period was your mother a little girl? Like about the same age as some of these students over in Odisha?
So she was from Trinidad and Tobago, which is the West Indies. So that's where I'm from, and that's where she was at. So that was many, many years ago. Probably, I'm going back to the 1940s or something like that, maybe, when that happened to her as a young child, definitely. So that stuck with me as a child, growing up with her. We immigrated to the United States when I was 4.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm second of 4 siblings, so I was the child that would write letters for her when she needed that, or read the letters that came back from her family, anything that she needed, with reading, writing. I was kind of the designated child at that time to do those things for her.
Now, when you moved to the United States, was it a situation where your whole family came together, or did you still have some family there in India?
Yeah, we all immigrated together. My dad came first, and then the rest of the family came, my mom and us 4 siblings. But originally, our ancestors were originally from India, but the Caribbean islands were, with the British, they were British colonies. So they had people that were indentured laborers that they brought from India, and that's how many of them settled in the islands. So I don't know where my original, family are from, ancestors. But my dad always had this kind of calling to go back to India. That's just something that he strongly felt. So we moved there when I was age 14. From the U.S. to India, and I didn't know anything about language, culture, and things like that, but we lived in an ashram, so that's where I learned meditation and many of the religious texts and things like that I still, I'm glad that I practiced and learned about. So that's kind of the connection to India.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned, I guess, the Caribbean connection, because I don't think a lot of people realize that. Back in December, I got to spend some time at the St. John National Park, and went there with a school group to do trail maintenance for a week. And one of the days, they had us working way too much, and it was hot down there. And but one of the days we got to kind of have a free day and go around and explore the island. And the best food I ate while I was there was at this little food truck, and I guess what you would call like downtown St. John. But the gentleman there was Indian, and he was telling me about some of the background in the Virgin Islands, specifically about these immigrants from India and some of the food and some of the culture that they spread. And for the life of me, I wish I could remember the specific dish that it was, but it was an Indian dish, and it was almost kind of like a curry with shrimp and all these different vegetables in it. But it had that very unique flavor and distinctive flavor that you get with just about any dish you eat at an Indian restaurant around here or anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think a lot of people realize that connection between India, the Caribbean, and the United States.
Yeah, there's several islands there where they, were all brought to work on sugar plantations, things like that. Yeah.
And so you got to move to the United States when you were 4, and then go back to India when you were 14.
Yes, that's right.
And I'm sure that was probably a bit of a culture shock.
It was. It was definitely. We lived in an ashram, so it was sort of a protected community, definitely. But I learned meditation, chanting, things that, are my foundation of my spiritual practice every day. So I'm grateful for that as an adult, definitely. But the sad part is 2 years after we moved there, my mom unexpectedly passed away there. Very, very unexpectedly. So she was like in her early 40s when that happened. So that was really a very challenging time when you're a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, having to deal with that.
And so the impression she left on it really sounds like, I mean, from what you've told me so far and just in the past when we talked as well, it sounds like she was a great person who had a tremendous impact on you. But you really see that maybe if she had different opportunities growing up, then perhaps she could have done more with her life, or just had more opportunities to maybe affect more people in a positive way.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, definitely. I think she was a very creative person. She taught me a lot about compassion, I think. One of the things I remember growing up here in New Jersey is we had a neighbor, like he kind of lived behind us. His wife had died many years before. And one of my jobs was to take whatever I had for dinner, I would take him a plate of that food every day. That was my job to do that. And some of the favorite things that I love to do is share food with others. And I think that came from that, instilling that from growing up, in our household. Whatever you have, you can always share it with others, and that's something I practice, definitely.
Just having that sense of generosity.
Yes,
for people.
Yeah, sharing gratitude, I think, with others is really, really important.
So would you say that the situation that your mother grew up in is still a lot of the same situation for many young girls in India? Because I guess modern India, I'd love to go there at some point, but I think the impression I have is that it's, in a lot of ways, it's still a developing country. There's probably still a lot of areas in India that are very rural, and I would probably assume that these areas are much more impoverished than many people realize.
I think things are changing there due to the current prime minister. One of his goals is to bring more connectivity and opportunities to the villages, because that's where, a lot of people come from villages. You might live in a city, but everybody's originally from some village, their original ancestors and their home and things like that. So the mindset is definitely shifting. I don't think it's completely there yet. There are laws, against certain things with education and with girls and things like that. But changing people's minds, that's a longer process, but it is happening. Definitely, for example, the first time I went there, I think it was 2017, 2018. And I really wasn't sure if the parents really believe in sending their daughters for education. I just didn't know, but I wanted to find out, what they really thought. So I made the effort to go with teachers that were from the school to as many homes as I could that these girls belonged to in the surrounding villages, and ask the same questions about, why do you want to send your daughter, for education. What do you believe about this? And most of them said, we're not educated. And their grandparents were not educated either. But we want our daughters to have those opportunities that we didn't have. And there was one instance where I was in a village, they had a meeting, and because I visit there, they asked me to say something and they would translate it into English. And I can't remember the exact sentence, but I talked about the importance of girls' education, and immediately, spontaneously, as it was translated, the whole audience was clapping. So in my heart, I believe they really believe in what they're doing and supporting their daughters for. This has a lot of meaning. It's not just, on the surface level or anything like that. So every single one was like, we want our daughters to have opportunities, education, employment, whatever they want to do, we're going to support them 100%. So that was beautiful to see that they believed in that so strongly.
This is work that can change generations in these communities.
Yeah, I totally believe that. And the girls, I think, have seen that too, that those that are educated, that will change generations to come because they have education, because they have knowledge, because they can make their own decisions for their lives, in their families, in their communities. That to me is a huge game changer in any child's life, but especially for young females. That's that empowerment, equipping them that we talk about, and educating them to be successful.
So what is life, so maybe before the school or just even throughout the history of India, what is life usually like for these girls? Is it kind of more in the traditional sense where they're kind of more of the housekeepers, or they're trying to, they're obviously raising families or these different things, but what's maybe that kind of dichotomy that from where they start out, kind of what their destiny is, and how education can change that for them?
So I think like in a lot of countries, they are the primary caregivers. Sometimes their lives are planned out by the elders. A lot of families have joint family systems, so kind of everybody's involved in the decision making for the males, and the females as well too. Definitely, I think in the past, historically, it would be they would educate the daughters in some places, but then they would not have an opportunity necessarily to do something with that education, employment, or how to use the knowledge that they've gained.
Yeah.
Mostly would be, marriage would be the next stage of life and go on from there. Still use your education, but within the family unit, I think, would happen like that. There might not be opportunities to get further education because it was like for the males, it was more education maybe. For the females, it was more of the family, upbringing the family. And, they felt like the mother is the solid rock of the family. And that's what's going to help raise the children and make sure, generations continue on. I think in a lot of countries, that's an issue. It's still an issue in our country where women do have employment, but they still share the burden of, the household and managing that. That still is an issue globally for anywhere you live in the country. So, but now the opportunities are there with education to have more decision-making power and more in charge of what you want to do with your life.
They have more agency over their own lives.
Yes, definitely.
Their destiny set for them due to the culture or just upbringing that they come into.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So I think I saw on the website, so the nonprofit was founded about 2017, around that time period.
Correct.
But the school, I believe, was founded in 2011.
Correct, yes.
Yes, and it was...
It was a day school. Yeah, the two schools were founded by my father. His story is investing in education, using his Social Security funds to do something that will live beyond him, I think, which I really appreciate that, especially that it's education with children. that's something that will keep on giving.
Yes.
Generation, keep working, and that will keep improving, definitely.
And I found that so interesting when I read that on the website, that he used his social security funds to found a school all the way on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you think that most people, that's what they rely on, they have their nest egg,
Right.
their retirement, but it's like, what really compelled him to go out there and do that?
I think that he was in his 60s when he's so close to the age I am. I'm in my 60s now, and he said, I don't need a lot to live on, because in India right now, $1 is 85 Indian dollars.
Yeah.
So the money goes a long way, and he's like, it's just me by myself. I don't need that much money just for me to live like every month. What else could I do with this money? And so he met somebody. He was in actually another ashram in Rishikesh, and he met the person that's from this village. And that person said, I've always wanted to help the less fortunate people in my village. And that's how they ended up getting together and founding first the boys' school, like 1999, 2000. First is when that was founded and opened. And I didn't go see the boys' school until I think it was 2004 or 5. It's when I first saw that, and I said, that's good, but where's the girls' school? I believe, because of my mother's story, it's more important to educate girls. And of course, he couldn't believe I told him that, but in 2011 is when the girls' school was founded, a day school with the surrounding villages, recruiting girls from the area.
And how many students did the school start out with?
They started out with probably I would say maybe 10 to 15 until, it grew slowly to 40 after a few years, because the girls are ages 10 to 16.
Okay.
That's kind of
So kind of like late middle school, high school.
Yeah,
range.
right, because their high school finishes at age 16 in general.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, they're on more of the British kind of system, sort of their educational system.
Okay.
Yeah, so generally they were looking at girls those age, which are really important ages when you're thinking about development and growth and learning about yourself and through education.
And so with the school starting out with around a dozen students and expanding to about 40, it sounds like the school's had about a decade and a half to really start to develop the curriculum that the students are being exposed to. So I guess starting out, what were some of the subjects the students were being taught? Like, how do you, from an educational perspective, start from a background where these girls are coming from a very rural village, very family oriented, culturally anchored background, and trying to, I guess, start the process of education in a sense where they can start to go out and maybe have more options with their lives, and to maybe explore more broadly or live more broadly. In a sense. So that's one of the things that education does for you.
Absolutely.
It opens up all kinds of doors that you wouldn't have had regardless.
Yeah, you see the world differently. Yeah. Absolutely. Knowledge is power, definitely. So lots of times there are what they call government schools, which would be similar to public schools here. So they did go to those type of schools, but a lot of times the teaching is not that good, or, just the support systems are not that great as well, too. So this type of school, what I really love about this type of school is that there is a state curriculum, academic subjects. You have to teach these, of course. This is what they're taught, all those subjects. But what makes this school really unique is that they learn their ancient culture in this particular school. So what that means is they learn yoga, meditation, ancient language of Sanskrit. And by the way, they learn 4 languages: their state language, national language, ancient language, and English. All those 4 languages they're learning, while they're at this school. English is also the language of opportunity in India as well. But because they learn those rituals also that they practice every day, they get up 4 o'clock in the morning is when their day starts in
They're
general.
doing better than I am.
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
up for like 10:30 today.
Yeah. Get up to do the rituals, meditation, yoga, all those practices before you start the academic curriculum. And their school setting is nature.
Yeah.
They sit outside among the trees. That is their school setting. So it's called a gurukul, which is an ancient way of teaching, actually. You're with nature, and it's not a desk and a chair and kind of setting at all. Most of the times they're outside. If the weather's not great, then they come into an inside classroom sitting on the ground, with mats and things like that. So what I have observed in the years that I've been there from the very beginning, when I've asked these children, and we've created 2 books on the first 40 girls about education and what they want to become, I see from the inside they are very strong because they know where they come from. They know their ancient practices, and they're doing those every day. Every single one of them basically said to me, I want to help my country.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something to help in some way. And most of them, almost 90%, want to become teachers because they all have seen what they've received, the value of their teachers, how the teachers love them, cared for them, not just teaching them. And they're like, I want to give that back to other students too. I want to do that. So
check my camera real fast. Okay. We're good. Yeah, so Sam, many of these students go on to want to become teachers and to give back in the same way that they've received from the curriculum and the teachers who are there, which when I was doing a little bit of background research, which I think anyone who's interested in this subject and this nonprofit should go and look at some of the videos you've shared on the website, because you can tell that the passion for this project and these initiatives is very palpable. I think, and I wish I could remember or even pronounce the gentleman's name.
Bhavan Devji, probably. Yeah,
I think
he's
so.
the one that co-founded with my dad. Yeah.
But it's obvious when you see him speak that it's very emotional for him.
Definitely.
He really sees the impact and
Yeah.
really believes strongly in the value of that education that he probably received at some point that he's able to pass down.
Not only what he received, but what he saw growing up in his village. He said, he always tells me this story about where he would be inside the school and there would be kids outside that couldn't attend the school. And he said, I would want to give them my food, whatever I could give them. I felt sorry that they did not have this opportunity. Like it felt unfair that they couldn't be in the school as well too. So that's where his, I think, passion came from, is seeing what he experienced with other kids not being able to be educated and wanting to give that to those children to have those opportunities. Definitely.
Right. Yeah. And so in addition to some of the ancient practices that the students are learning, which we could have a whole other conversation probably about that, which I don't know if many people realize just how ancient, I guess either Hinduism or that culture from India is.
Right.
Coming from more of a Christian background, like you look at the Bible and some of the passages in the Hebrew scriptures, and I think some of the Vedas or some of the writings from ancient India date further back than even some of those other writings.
Yes.
But it really sounds like you guys are grounding these students in that, very deep and ancient culture. But what are maybe some of the more modern skills that y'all are trying to work to pass on to these students?
I think definitely having access to technology, and skills literacy with technology is really critical in any part of the world, but especially there. Everything you do in India, it's all done online. You got to apply for this or answer something. It's like everybody needs to learn. It's a basic kind of skills, having computer literacy, really, really critical for these kids now. So we are working on that. We've put some desktops in, and one of the challenges has been, because it's so rural, is getting, competent teachers to be there consistently to teach the girls. But we might look at other angles. Maybe we could do it online since we have access. All the setup is there right now. Maybe that's another way that we could go to find teachers online to teach them. But from the first 40 girls, to the current students now, we have seen that that's such a great need. Like everything they need to do is through the computer, and we want them to be knowledgeable when they leave. Like how do you set up a Gmail account? How do you answer things? And all those skills are like just basic that they need to learn as well too.
Well, even learning to type on a keyboard.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember like in 8th grade when I was growing up, I don't know if they had some kind of mandatory class on how to learn how to do that, but I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, I'm never going to use this. Then, yeah.
Little did you know.
Where my mindset was back then. Became a journalist and doing a lot of writing. But I mean,
yes.
I've on the computer sometimes, and sometimes I just think back to just that class and just how helpful it turned out to be.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Learning basic things like that, how to use a keyboard, how to open things, how to answer, we want to teach how do you answer an email, send one, simple things that, we have all learned how to do, and it's like easy for us, but not there. We want them to be just confident and capable wherever they go, like even learning English. So they practice a lot with me when I'm there with their English, definitely, and they are so confident. They write so beautifully. Their handwriting and their knowledge of English is fabulous. It's just having the confidence, to communicate verbally, things like that. But they have done so well. So we want that to transfer in other areas for them, especially with computer literacy. That's a huge one, Yeah,
and then just knowing the basic knowledge of how to use a computer.
Yeah.
That opens up so many different things that you can, eventually do online or do with the systems.
Yes, definitely. Because years ago, the first batch of girls, one of them did so well in her exam. It's like a high school, it's like an SAT kind of exam, that they were giving rewards for that. So she got a laptop. She was the first to get that, but she didn't know how to use it. She didn't have internet access. And I thought, they didn't think this through. If you're going to give this to somebody in the village, how do you give everything else to help them use that tool?
Right.
So
something like internet access. I mean, here in West North Carolina, that's a big issue. Can only imagine how much of an issue that is in rural India.
Yeah. They have one of the issues they have is electricity problems, and that's very unpredictable. Sometimes it's rooted in the weather. Monsoon is a huge rainy season, and that will affect everything. So you can't travel, you can't get a lot of places, and things like that. So that affects the electricity, or sometimes it's sporadic as well. It's unplanned. You have to deal with it and live your life, like that. And that's pretty challenging. So we would love to invest, slowly in solar power and, generators through that, things like that, to make that more sustainable, not be such an ongoing issue with that's so unpredictable sometimes.
And from watching some of these other videos, where some of these students, I think either between the boys' school and the girls' school, that having this education has allowed them to maybe move out of some of the more rural villages or go into maybe some of the larger cities, earn a better income, and then come back to some of these villages and be able to give back in such a way.
Yes, yeah.
So with maybe some of the students that have graduated already or been through this program, what has been that destiny for them as they've gone on into their adulthood and further in their lives?
Yeah, so definitely the boys' school has been established longer. So they're like a model for the girls' school in some level. So many of them have finished PhDs, master's degrees, of course, and are teaching in high schools or universities. So they are definitely, supporting their families and their communities, and they do come back to their villages. So that's really a great way to give back. And they come back to their original school. And every year there's an annual function, and they help a lot with that. And actually next February or so, it's going to be 25 years. So they have a big celebration going on. They call it a jubilee to honor that foundation that's been going on for several years. So the girls are finally on that path too. Most of many of the 41st girls are finishing master's degrees, bachelor's degrees. There's one or two I know that want to go on to do a PhD. So a lot of them are in their early 20s right now. And I'm just ecstatic about that because it's like I feel like they're my daughters, and I've seen them grow up through these several years, and they are living their dreams. And I'm so thankful for their hard work, their determination, belief in themselves, the families' belief in them. They all want to be employed and help their communities. That is the ultimate goal, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really the pathway to take these areas that are development and to lift these communities out of poverty. I mean, you're talking about areas that, or have issues just with electricity connectivity, but do a lot of these places, have running water and that kind of things as well, or is it?
So one of the things that I learned when I was there is that it is a farming community. A lot of them are farming communities, and there have been droughts for many, many years. So that's definitely affected the communities for a while. But they are also tremendously resilient people. They don't walk around going, I'm poor, I'm poor. It's like whatever they have, that's how they, live in their communities and help each other, of course, with whatever's happening and things like that. There is, in some villages, they have, it's like the water is in the middle of the village and you hand pump it. Everybody goes there to collect the water.
Cistern?
Yes,
Like a well system.
Right. That's a very common practice still in some villages and things like that. Some homes might have running water, there are many, things that are modernized in villages as well, too. But people really work to help each other. That's just, it's community-oriented places. It's not just so individualistic. So it's just a different way that people operate. So they're just very resilient. That's just what I've seen. They will do whatever it takes with whatever they have. So having the opportunities in these areas, I think, is really critical for these children.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a lot of human and social capital in these areas where you probably, have these families with multiple generations that are around and help and assist them, all kinds of different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's really, really important. Families, grandparents live together, sometimes aunts and uncles all live together in their home, and farming, everybody helps with, everything that's needed as well, too. So when I was looking at some of these videos online, it sounds like, or it looks like a few years ago, there was an effort to actually build a school or have a physical building in this area. Yes.
When did that begin, and what is the current update on that effort?
Yeah, so that was a dream from the beginning, I think, too. Eventually, we're going to have a campus like the boys have had, for a while. We're going to have our own girls' campus, and our own residential dorm. Because in the beginning, the girls were riding their bikes, sometimes 40 minutes away one way, 6 days a week to come to school. And I'm like, if you can do that, you can do anything. You want this education. This has a lot of meaning for you, definitely. But as we surveyed, even the parents, they were all interested in having a residential school because the parents gave some really wonderful feedback. They said, we want them to be in that education environment as much as possible because we don't have those skills and we don't have the knowledge, but we want them to be in that space where they can continuously have that kind of support, in their life, definitely. So it had been a dream, and it did finally happen about a couple of years ago, building the residential campus. And it was so beautiful to see that come to fruit, actually. Edge was part of one of the things required in the system there. You have to build, they call it a compound wall, a wall that's around the school That's for protection. It's way out in the woods in the middle of nowhere. That's by the law there. That's what's required. So we were part of setting that foundation. We supported the first gate that came for that residential school as well. Very symbolic, for us to support that, I think, gateway into new environment, new opportunities, for these girls as well. So getting that established was tremendous. So there's almost 40 girls there now, maybe another 20 might be coming in July. So it's wonderful to see that.
So it's growing. It's going from 40 to 60?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Every year they take about 20 new students. One of the challenges with that is getting more teachers. We need to have that foundation there. But I've been there a few times now, at least 2 or 3 times since that started. And it's great to see the new students, the young ones, and the ones, that have been there a year or 2 now, and their passion for learning and being in that constant where they're living now, where they're learning. Yeah. So that's a very powerful thing to see. They're learning how to grow their own vegetables, take care of the land. They learn life skills. It's not just academic subjects only too. All the skills that we all need as a human being to be an adult. They're learning all of those, whether it's cleaning or cooking, growing your vegetables, how to take care of your environment also, too.
Yeah, and even in the schools around here, that's an effort they're trying to focus on a bit more. I know out toward, I think, like the Vilas community, I forget the exact name of the elementary school, but they have a whole garden out there where the elementary school students go out and grow vegetables or go take care of the chickens and do different things. So
your food doesn't come from a grocery store. You actually do grow it.
They actually have to grow it out
there. Valley Chris's School maybe or one of those out there. Yeah, that's powerful. Same thing we said, if you want to drive a tractor, we want you to learn how to do that. Everything you have the opportunity to learn that you want to learn. Sewing machines, that's something the girls were interested in, so we purchased a couple of those. Finding a teacher consistently has been challenging. But musical instruments, they want to learn about that, those kinds of things too. So we purchased some instruments for them to learn. Again, finding the teachers to be consistent with that has been a little bit challenging. But things that the girls say they're interested in, we need to foster those things.
It sounds like there's just some things with education that are completely universal. And I think one of those things is finding qualified teachers.
Yes.
So I'm kind of curious as to what the staff of the school looks like, because obviously teachers are a big part of it, but every school facility, needs people to cook meals, to clean, to do, provide transportation. I don't know how much that is a thing over there, but it sounds like just with communities everywhere. I mean, the school is a bedrock, one of the bedrocks of the community. So it sounds like, in addition to providing the girls' education at the school, there's also an opportunity to provide more jobs and kind of opportunities like that for people in and around the village.
We do have people there that help with cooking the meals there. Sometimes the girls, help with that as well too. They have a security guard that's there, and stays there. And we don't have enough teachers. That is definitely an issue that we are running into and trying to work on that. Teachers for certain subjects like computer skills, of course, science and math, some of those areas also too. So we might be looking into tapping into online teaching, finding resources there, that are well looked into that would maybe serve some of those purposes. It's very rural, and getting people to come out there and there's nothing else out there, just the school.
There's no McDonald's.
The school and the villages. That's about it out there. So maybe a bigger town is like 20 minutes away or something. So you really have to have a passion for wanting to be with these students and wanting to educate them to be there.
Which I think, if I remember correctly, on the website it says that the teachers who are there, they earn about $200 a month. I mean, that's, I think, just one of those things when people maybe think about just how different life is between the U.S. and other parts of the world. I mean, just the economic differences are staggering.
Right.
I think I don't know like what the poverty line is in the U.S., but I mean just living on $200 a month here is
Yeah.
darn near impossible.
Yeah. And that's the low end of the salaries that they're
Okay.
getting as well, too. We would love that to be increased
Mm-hmm.
for sure. If teachers are staying there, then of course room and board is free and their meals are there and things like that. But getting, we need to really look at the salaries and raise some of those to attract people,
Yeah.
more people that would want to be there and be interested in teaching the girls, definitely. And they have teachers that are shared right now through the boys' schools and the girls' schools to compensate for some of that. The schools are about maybe 20 minutes from each other or so by car.
Yeah.
So right now they're working it in that way. Some of the male teachers come and teach some of the subjects at the girls' school.
And so having that kind of network of the teachers. I mean, the whole online aspect, I think that probably sounds like a great idea, just
Yeah.
having access to a lot of those teachers. When I lived in Brazil for a little bit, and when I was down there, I was connected to a teacher who was teaching through a local church, teaching English, and he had lessons he would do with the local pastors down there. But his whole business model was that he taught students from all over Brazil, mainly online, to teach them English.
Right.
And, he would call me, so he's like, "Oh, I have an American here. I need to get online." And I was like, "I don't know if these kids want to learn English with a Southern accent, but there's probably some kids around Brazil just maybe saying y'all and different things as part of their dialect."
But they love learning.
They do,
from people from
yeah.
another culture, definitely. And as you're talking, I'm thinking that's another skill.
Mm-hmm.
Taking an online course, learning how to do that. I'm sure they're going to have to do that maybe in their other degrees as they go on further. So that's probably another skill that would really encourage them, and help them learn that.
And again, going back is needing to know the foundations of how to use a whole computer system.
Right.
It sets, the start for all of those possibilities.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've been gathering information for our third book coming up, hopefully by this fall. From the first 40 girls, like I said, that are completing bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and wanting to go on to PhDs as well. And we are asking them, one of the questions is, what is something that you believe Edge could have done more of to support you? And some of them have said, I would have loved to learn computer skills.
Yeah.
Definitely, because they're having to do that for just about everything, in their colleges. So that really taps into the need that is there. We know that's going to be critically important for these girls.
So that's something you're hearing a lot of is like the
Some of
emphasis
that.
on the computer skills.
Yeah, some of that. Some of the teachers, I think they mentioned having teachers for certain subjects. Like I talked about the science and math areas. Most of the time they say, we appreciate everything Edge has done. We're so grateful for what they, did while we were there and continue to be there as well, too. Mm-hmm. So we have some quotes from some of the students, if you'd like to share some of those.
They were asked what education means to them. And I had 3 quotes I thought I would share. The first one is, education is a fundamental tool for empowering girls because it gives us the knowledge, skills, and confidence to challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Education is my oxygen. And then there was another one. Oh yes, education gives wings to women to live their lives freely. So those are just a sample. There are many wonderful quotes. Can I add a couple things to build on what Christine said? I wanted to mention, yes, the people, and I've had the fortune of being in India several times, taking students from App State. And I've visited a number of rural villages. And I just think that when you say rural village, that people here in the United States can't picture that. Mm-hmm. And I think it speaks to their resilience. Many of them live in thatched roof huts. Many. There are concrete buildings, but many are still in thatched roof huts, which leak during the rain. And yes, you can see the electricity lines strung up. They certainly don't go to every home, and certainly it's not that reliable.
Yeah.
They are farming. They're herding goats and other animals, and so it's a beautiful place. They are living in many ways as they would have like several hundred years ago. Still,
it's like going back in time.
Yeah, and they've come a long way. And again, they're very resilient. But I just wanted to give that flavor.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to add, Christina's talked about girls' education, and it's incredibly important all around the world. And one of the reasons that people focus on it so much is because girls become mothers. And so women tend to be very future focused. And so the idea is if we, and again, Christina alluded to this, if we educate these girls, they develop into young mothers and their focus is on their children's future. So they're very, very future oriented about their communities, their country, the planet. And so I think around the world, and especially in India, that's a really important reason for educating girls and women.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't think the importance can be understated or overstated, however you want to say it. Because, I mean, it's work that's literally changing lives, and it's changing generations. I mean, when you talk about a country or people who have been living the same way for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, it's taking them and bringing them into, the modern world and all of the skills and different things you need to operate. And if you don't do that, these communities eventually get run over, or they get, people from the outside that move in, and you don't know what's going to happen to them. Those family structures won't be intact anymore, or, they have no power to express themselves or to advocate or to do any of these things to, just to keep their lives intact with the way they have been.
I think their decision-making power greatly changes, because people can tell you things, but you need to use your own knowledge about what decision you want to make. Sometimes when you're uneducated, you can get swayed with others' knowledge. But I see the girls as they're not educating just themselves, but their family and their communities.
Yeah.
They are a big part of that, definitely. And that, to me, brings everybody up, to be knowledgeable and to make decisions as a community or as a family.
Yeah.
That's huge, because there are lots of people that will sway you with their own knowledge this way or that way, but what do you know and what do you want to do?
And that's huge, because I don't think a lot of people realize as well that India is the world's largest democracy.
Yes, population-wise, yes.
Yeah, and I don't know how top down it is or bottom up it is. I don't know, India's, you can probably get into the whole thing with the caste system or how that still operates in modern India. But just being able to express yourself and to argue for yourself and to defend yourself and your own choices and freedom as much as they have it there. And I think it's huge.
Yeah, it is.
So
it
important.
Is. And it's changed in the last several years in a positive way, where female education and female empowerment is one of the top movements in the country, definitely. Yeah. I get some news feeds about news from India, She the People, and one of them's called Better News India, and there is individual and group stories about phenomenal changes that are going on there, where women are making their own decisions, realizing why is it so important to have the education and be financially independent as well, to make your own decisions. So the movement is happening big time there, and these girls are part of what's happening, in that country now too.
India has an interesting political system, because I believe they have a head of state and a head of the country, or almost like ahead of the culture.
Yeah,
in some
so
sense?
it's like the British system. The prime minister, here you have president, and there you have they call chief ministers, and here you have, what do they call them, governors in our state, that make the state decisions and things like that. But it is over 1 billion people. It is a democracy, definitely.
And Modi, he's the
current prime minister is President Modi.
But don't they have like another position? Where
There is a president.
A president.
She's a female, and one of her great stories about her, she's from the same state that the girls are from.
Really?
Yeah, and she comes from, so I don't know how to use this term, but some of the rural communities are called tribal communities, very indigenous people in the land. And she's also from a tribal community. That's where, and she was a teacher also too. So she's a huge representation of what we want the girls to see, what you can become in your own life one day. And she's the president. Yes.
She's a real symbol of modern India.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she's from the same state. I'm just ecstatic about that the girls are from, which is Odisha. Yeah.
Have you read the book, The White Tiger?
I don't think I've heard the title.
Okay. It might be a movie on Netflix as well. But I read it years ago, I think when I was in like a freshman in high school, and that was kind of my first exposure to the culture of India. And, and that book's about someone who grew up in a very rural village and eventually went on to he moved into like I think New Delhi. And
big city. Yeah,
it's a story of moving from like that village culture into the modern culture, into the big city, and what India is becoming.
Right.
It's kind of a dark story. I don't know if I should recommend it. Yeah. But that seems to be a very common running theme with how I guess India is nowadays.
Yeah, opportunities, just like in lots of countries, are in the bigger cities and places. But what I've seen with the young men is that have graduated from the boys' school is that they've gone off to big cities to get education, but they're bringing it back to the villages and communities. I think that's where modern and rural can really support each other, bringing that back to helping educate everybody. Then that's powerful. You're not just staying in the city to use what you've learned and your knowledge. No, I'm going to take it back to the places that I want to help.
Yeah, and working to raise that standard of living so that you have people in those communities who are healthier, who live longer lives, and who, just have a more of a sense of well-being, or have the benefits that the modern world can offer them, which I'm sure there's drawbacks as well in some senses, but I mean, it also seems it's great that the school is doing this in a way that the students are still being grounded in that tradition and culture.
Definitely. They're not allowed to have cell phones.
Oh,
it's not affordable either.
Yeah.
Maybe a whole family would have one. That everybody would use, and I've seen some of the research recently about that. I think it was in Denmark with, they want to make sure kids don't have a lot of exposure. They've seen what it's doing with attention span and all the kind of things that are coming out of that as well too.
Well, speaking of the attention span, I mean, the best thing you can do for that is meditation.
Absolutely.
And that's something I've been exposed to has been beneficial for me, and I wish I did it more. But just, you see that just with the influence that India has had on the United States, where even, with Valerie over at Neighborhood Yoga.
Yes,
I forget when she started that business, but I remember growing up and talking to my mom and my aunt and being like, what is this yoga thing that y'all are doing? Y'all are crazy. Like, what is this? But now that's such a common thing. And as I got into it, especially last semester when I was still working at the paper, doing the hurricane coverage and being in grad school and working at TA, I would go up to the Art of Living Center on Sundays and do their free community yogas, and I'd just be not sleeping or just stressed out, but able to go up there and do that, and then just for the rest of the week, I could just feel my attention span just being much better, just being much more grounded, and being able to focus so much better on all the different things I was doing.
Yeah, it's recommended for so many things. I'm a counseling background by profession and used it a lot in the work I did. Even when I worked at App State with my students, teaching them, you have control of this. It's your practice to give it to yourself, and connect to yourself and bring that, to yourself definitely. Really, really important to have those daily practices, that sustain you, because stuff is always going to come at us, but what do I choose? How can I choose to respond instead of reacting, to different situations and things like that? And I do want to thank Valerie. She's been a supporter of us from the very beginning. We've hosted some of our first events there. We host, the Hindu New Year celebration, Diwali there.
Which is great.
She's a tremendous, the biggest heart to support our work, definitely. Because one of the challenges with us is that we're founded locally, but we serve globally.
Right.
And so finding funding and grants that connect with them, that's been a little bit of a challenge for sure. We've worked with Dr. Creighton at the university. She does a lot of work with nonprofits, and
I need to take some of her classes.
Yeah, she is phenomenal human being, definitely, and she's helped us with students that have been interns with us and things like that, grant writing to try to help some of those areas. So grateful for our local people that have definitely been supporting us in different ways.
And on that subject, this is something I want to ask you about as well, because as I've done my work as a journalist in the past, and as I'm starting this new initiative with trying to be more online and bring that community journalism into the modern age, I've noticed a trend where I'm talking to and interviewing a lot of people who operate small nonprofits, and I'm just maybe kind of curious as to maybe the things that y'all have done to maybe access those grants, to build out systems, to have a steady communication with the donors and the people who really support your effort. Maybe what did that look like in the beginning, and what were some of the work that y'all have done over the years to grow that and to find some success in those areas?
Yeah, it's been challenging. Yeah. We haven't found the grants that match up well with what we are doing and how we're serving, but that doesn't mean we give up. We'll keep working on that. Keep going after that. This year we did an online auction. We thought, let's try something different, and see how that pans out. We were going to do an event with River Girl last fall, but Helene, did a dent in that with everything. So, and it was good, but again, we got to build on it. Definitely, I think one of the things that has been helpful is we do have it's a small group, but monthly donors. So that steady donation, building more of a base with that, I think is helpful. That's regular, funds to support our initiatives that are coming in and things like that. We do need to work on more partnerships also. So we need to look at other avenues to get continuous support. I think the challenge for us is definitely marketing, and just educating people about who we are and what we're doing, in the world. I know we're here, but we serve globally. And I just believe that, how it happened for me is that this work kind of came to me. I didn't know that this is what I was going to be doing in my life. Yeah. I knew that in 2015, after I visited those girls, I had such a bonding time with them for 2 weeks. We were together, and I left. And then within a year, I started having emotional stuff come up at work or getting irritated. And I thought, this is not normally me. And being a counselor, I'm like, something's not right. I don't know what's going on here. So what I did, I went to counseling sessions for 6 months. I actually did play therapy because I'm like, I need to give it time and space to listen to what the universe is trying to tell me. And after 6 months, out of the end of that came, you're supposed to be mentoring those girls in India. That's the message I got. And I was astounded. I was like, wow, this is what I'm being asked to do. So, of course, I believed it. Even if I don't understand it or know what to do, I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to do. So I left my work, and my children were worried. They're like, are you okay? Is everything, okay with you? And I'm like, this is what I'm being asked to do, so I'm going to follow it. So that's how I ended up founding it by 2017.
Yeah.
And my first trip back there to the girls, I said, "You're not going to believe this, but I believe somehow that was planted in my heart by them. Something happened to me for that to happen within 2 years after I met them to establish this work. It feels very purposeful, to be in the world and having the privilege, to do this with a great board as well, board of women that believe in our mission and our work to do this."
That's so interesting. You felt some kind of disturbance in your life, and you're just like, I can't go on doing what I'm doing. I have to change things, and this is kind of your way to continue the legacy of your parents and their ways, and to
Absolutely.
This,
yeah. My dad passed away in October 2023, and I got to go there after the fact, but got to distribute his ashes in the Holy River, Ganga River, and things like that. And I really felt then it is a legacy of education, like it's going on to the next generation to carry that on in whatever form that is. So I'm really grateful to be a part of that. And I always think about it being a ripple effect, like that pebbles dropped into the pond and it just keeps expanding and expanding. And I just feel that that's a beautiful vision to be a part of.
Yeah, and that's something I've noticed as well between many people who I've come into contact with who run small nonprofits, is that they have this really strong sense of mission and purpose, and that they're doing something with their lives that is bigger than just a career or making a paycheck or getting by. And they come into this work and they have this strong sense of passion around it, but they come into it and they're like, well, I don't really know how to do fundraising. I don't know how to operate this thing. I don't know a lot of those maybe more mundane aspects of the work. So as I'm doing this, I'd like to maybe provide some resources or just have some kind of information out there as to how people can take on the efforts and have success with the fundraising and all of those kind of more day-to-day aspects of it. So maybe I should get in contact with Dr. Creighton.
Yeah, she is wonderful. She had a seminar last fall that we went to, some of us went to. It was very enlightening. She's just a champion of nonprofits, wealth of knowledge and information, definitely. I feel like for me, and I think our board, it's a calling. It's like it came to us. I wasn't going after this, but it's like definitely feels like, I don't know how to say it. It's like from my ancestors as well. I felt that also too, like this is something that's been asked, to be fulfilled. And I'm thankful that we can do it in however ways that we offer support and to these girls, to have their generations continue to prosper as well.
And I worked at the Grandfather Mountain Stewardship Foundation for 2 years. While I was there, I was the executive assistant. Did some media stuff with them, but also was kind of their point person for their the consulting firm they worked with, which was Hunter Kemper Consulting, and they do a lot of work with nonprofits in Western NC. They're based out of Asheville. But while I was there, I learned, that whole process of doing donor management, of working with the spreadsheets and all these information systems, and the work of staying in constant contact with the people who support you.
Right.
And one of the most powerful things that you can have in that line of work are the results and the stories behind what you do. And I think that's something that Edge Nonprofit can do really well, because even, when we began the interview, we were talking about starting out and just going out and handing the students the water bottles, and providing uniforms, and being able to grow that in such a way that you're actually, helping provide sewing machines and computers and laptops, and I guess maybe even helping fund some of the things we're building the school.
When they first started out, the residential campus. So, definitely,
you'll have those stories and the results to sit there and say, like, hey, here's what we've done. And hey, here are even some of the girls and their stories and what they've been able to go on to do with their lives. That this work has been able to accomplish for them.
Absolutely. I always think this is going to continue when I'm not here too. It will keep on going to affect many, many generations. And I think impact can be, it doesn't have to be this. It can be something like this that is sustained.
Right.
That is constant. That is there to support these girls in
And
their
it's
growth.
it's very specific and very focused as well. It's not,
Definitely.
Sometimes, there's maybe some of these larger nonprofits kind of have these very, maybe more lofty ideas, but I think a lot of these small nonprofits have an advantage in that things are at the small level and they're very focused, and you get down to kind of the nitty gritty and really the personal aspects of it, which I'd love to read the books at some point.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, the stories were very inspiring from the first 40 girls, simple questions about why do you want an education? What are you going to do with this education? What do you want to become, and things like that. And it's beautiful to see how they answered those questions in the beginning. And now with the third book, all through their, college and university degrees, it's wonderful to read what they're answering now about what they see as education and what they see their lives becoming. It's, that's what education's supposed to do. Help you really become fully who you are, and then really embrace that and do something with that knowledge that you want to.
Yes. If someone were to watch this interview, come across it, how can they support y'all?
So I think one of the most important ways is, like I talked about, becoming a monthly donor. Very simple to do. Some people start out $10 all the way on up to $200 or more a month. A simple way to sustain the work that we want to do. We do take one-time donations, and all of this is through the website as well, and generally join our email list for knowledge and information about, what is actually happening, what's going on, as we share those annually with folks that are interested in our work. We have a space on the website, I think, for if you have a suggestion for something, an idea for something that you're interested in, you're welcome to share that as well. Sometimes we have volunteer opportunities. Most of it will be, local or things like that, to events that are going on. But I think one of the questions that I ask when I go out in communities is for a person to reflect on, where would your life be if you did not have an education? Think about that. Usually there's dead silence for a few minutes, and people cannot fathom all the things that I've done because I've had an education. How would that have not been possible? So reflecting on that, trying to remind yourself of what education has brought into your life. That is what we want for these girls, to have those opportunities as well where they are.
I think that's a very powerful question, because I was just thinking about myself and kind of maybe some things in my own life or background. But I know that going to school has kept me out of trouble.
Yeah, it does so many things that we wouldn't think about environmentally, about exposure to, things that maybe would lead you in a different direction that's not productive maybe, whereas the other side, could take you in a different direction. Absolutely. Who you surround yourself with in an educational environment. Other people are uplifting. You're going to be uplifting, as well too. So lots of things we forget that education also encompasses too. Teachers teach not just subjects, but they teach how to live life. How to be a good human being, all those kinds of skills we might get from families. Sometimes kids don't get that, but, teaching also, I think, provides those kinds of things too to children.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just even with going to school, people, meet their spouses at App State. They form long time friendships.
Yes.
It's incredibly beneficial.
Yeah.
It's
very life-changing. I think those are sustainable, long-term, like you said, relationships, that I see the girls. One of the things that the girls have said in answering these questions for the third book is like, we need an alumni association. And I thought, yeah, you need to do that. Absolutely. And using that alumni to come back to the current girls now and teach them about your life, where you were, where you're going, you know, where you have been. That's powerful to bring that back to the current students, I think. And I'm encouraging them to see if we can do some of that online, if you can't be in person, because you can see yourself then in another person, especially the new students now, you know, okay, they're doing this, and where can I be, you know, in a few years as well.
Absolutely.
Too.
If you can have someone who's like, I've gone on and done this with my life, and I came like the president of India. I came from a village like this, and this is what
his father was selling tea. That was his that was his father's vocation. So that's very empowering in the country, because it's like, wow, and he's prime minister now.
Yeah. What
could I do in my own life then, you know, to make my, you know, goals and dreams also come true too. Yeah. Everybody has possibility.
Christine, my camera is telling me that it is about to quit on me. I'm trying to think of what else I should ask you.
Another quote in light of something that Christine said, and then I have just a couple of quick comments to make. Again, this is about what a graduate of the school feels about education. And she says, one of the biggest reasons why education is important is that it helps us become better versions of ourselves. And then I wanted to say, I've been to India 4 times, and people ask me what my favorite thing about India is. And what I always tell them is the people.
Yeah.
And the people are amazingly generous, and they have a welcoming spirit, and this strong, strong sense of community. And it's not, I was thinking about the word, it's not an obligation, it's a desire to commit and build and strengthen and give to the community so that it keeps going stronger into the future.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is true. It's so hospitable. You can't leave a home without having something, partake of something, and that's just the norm there, you know. That's just how you treat guests in your home.
And I think Christine's father, I'm trying to think of the word, but embodied that when he chose to build a boys' school, and then Christine expanded on that generosity with trying to getting the girls' school built.
I want to visit India one day.
You can go to these schools, visit the schools, and see those kids. One of the things I don't want to forget is that we are supporting what's already being done there. You know, everybody's on the ground there, Balan Devji and all the teachers and everybody that's there. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for the everyday work that goes on there. So one of the things we do annually is we support an annual bonus for all the teachers there. Because we believe from the person cooking the food, the gardening, everybody is part of supporting the education of a child there. Yeah. So we absolutely do that to let them know we respect and appreciate their work. That's really important to us to represent that from Edge.
Yes, absolutely.
As well. So,
are those the questions printed out there? Okay, I'll maybe take a quick peek at this and make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, people locally, you guys are going to be at Boonerang next week.
Yeah, that's right. This is our second year that we get to be a part of that, definitely. And first year was great. We did some stacks. We did the Nandi and a lot. I think one of the key things for us is education about who we are and what we're doing. You know, and that's the marketing, social media part that constantly needs to be worked on for sure.
I think... I remember one time, I think I got one of those hand tattoos from you.
Yes, the henna. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Mandy.
You're going to be there the entire weekend?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
our goal.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes with the construction there, but everything's a go as far as I know.
Okay. I'll definitely stop by to get another hand
Yeah.
tattoo.
Great, yeah.
Christine,
Thank
you so much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Luke, yeah.
hopefully it comes out okay.